So if you watch today's lesson until the end, you'll discover how to make English easier to learn and remember by exploring the origin of words, where they come from, and why they are the way they are. And we're gonna aim to turn frustration into curiosity and help you embrace English's quirks instead of fighting them. So I have here in the studio with me today, 𝗥𝗟𝗃, who is actually a huge fan of etymology. Etymology is exactly the science, the studies of the origin of words. So, hey 𝗥𝗟𝗃.
Hi, Izzy. Hi, it's so great to be back. It's been a while, right? Guys, you might hear that I sound a little bit differently today. It's just because I have a stuffy nose. I'm a little bit under the weather today.
Under the weather. Under the weather sounds like there's some context there. There's some culture that you need to understand in order to really get that expression. Do you know the origin of that particular expression?
Okay, Izzy, thanks for asking. Now I know it as well, together with all our audience, because actually we had to ask Ethan to help us explain what it actually means, where the term comes from, and it comes from maritime, which is sailing. Guys, you can picture yourself, sailors at sea, being exposed to the weather and feeling seasick. Yes, when they're under the weather, when there is a storm or something going on. So they would go below the deck and try to recover. So when they're under the weather, they feel sick, but then they hide themselves below the deck to recover.
Deck is a good word too. It's like these floors on a ship, right? But the deck would be the floor that's actually being exposed to the weather.
But Ethan, let me ask you as well. You used in the intro, you used a nice word, quirk. Since we started explaining vocabulary, could you also explain the word quirk?
All right, yeah. I said that today we're going to explore English's quirks. Instead of like fighting them, we're going to be, excited about them. So a quirk is an unusual characteristic, something that makes you very different from most people. That's a quirk of yours.
All right. So 𝗥𝗟𝗃, let's now dive into the world of etymology.
But first, what's the deal with first? The word first. Have you ever thought about that? And also the word second? Like they're very different from third, fourth, fifth, sixth, because they follow the names of the numbers. It's like 5, 6, 7, 8, it's like fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth. But first and second, they do not.
Yeah, I know. Another thing that I know is that because English is in the family of Indo-European languages, I know that they share the numbers in common, so we can trace back all the common roots. But I don't remember if I've ever checked this thing, first, second, third. Could you explain it to me, please?
Yeah, I actually have a clip that I found yesterday when I was just, researching about this topic. And let's check it out. I think it's just super interesting.
If you are in position 3, you're in 3rd place. Position 5, 5th. Position 197, 197th. Pretty simple. So why do positions 1 and 2 give us 1st and 2nd? Shouldn't they be 1th and 2th? Well, maybe, but English loves collateral adjectives. Adjectives derived from different roots than the nouns they describe. There are plenty of derived adjectives, don't get me wrong. A bunch of clouds make the day cloudy. Friends are friendly. Poets are poetic. Things with a lot of smell to them are smelly. But the moon is not moonly. The moon is lunar. Collateral adjectives are everywhere. Mouth stuff is oral. Bees are apian. Some nouns have both. Fathers can be fatherly or paternal. And a setting filled with fog can be foggy or brumous.
That's interesting, as the whole etymology is. I know that's really like a mysterious thing. You know why people actually love etymology? I guess it's because we tend to love all those puzzles, mysteries. Take Sherlock Holmes or Agatha Christie's novels, right? We're kind of addicted to solving puzzles, and etymology is just like a huge puzzle to solve, where everything comes from, how you get this or that word. But actually, after like watching this video, there is one more puzzle left for me. I didn't quite get about the first and second. Are those words coming from a different language or something? Could you just briefly sum up it for me?
Yeah, let me just clarify that because it was in the very beginning of the clip and it was just shown on screen. So if you guys are not watching this lesson on the RealLife app, by the way, if you're just listening, you should know that there are some things that will show on screen there. You can only see if you're on an app. So click the link in the description to download and start watching this lesson from there. First, it comes from you have two parts there in that word. Fur, which is from Proto-Indo-European, this original language in Europe that means forward. It's the thing that goes forward, and the second part, like st, comes from the superlative. So it's the most forward, number one, or first. And second, it comes from secundo, or which is following. It follows number one, two follows one. So that's what second is. There's even that verb, right? I second you, and I follow you, right?
Oh, there are so many other words we would love to share the history behind them today. That's interesting.
I can think of some collateral adjectives, by the way. He mentioned that collateral adjectives are this when you have a noun that uses a root from a certain language, and then the adjective of that word uses a different root. So there's the case of moon and lunar, as he said, but there's also sun and solar.
And solar, yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Or stars and stellar. How about vivid? Do you know where that comes from? The word vivid?
Vivid. Again, it might be a folk etymology. I would connect it to vision.
It's funny, because of, as a non-native, myself and you may know some words where they come from that I don't, and vice versa. In Portuguese, the word life, in Portuguese is vida. And from Latin is vivere, which is to live. So I know that vivid means full of life and intensity, There's even the word revive, which is more literal in this case.
That's a very great point that you're bringing here, Easy, is just because of those connection between your mother tongue and English, or the language you're learning, because it becomes like a fun quest. When you start learning new words, not only can you come across the similarities, English word might be the same or slightly different as in your native language, just because they either were a borrowed word or they share the common root. But you can also trace back in history. If you really take an effort, look up the etymology, you can trace back in history to this word, where it came from. So it's just imagine when you learn etymology or learn a new language, it's not only about words, it's about our common history. All the transactions, interactions we had, all this common history we share. Like, for example, right now I'm reading this fun book, Languages Are Good for Us. And I'm on the chapter right now where the author, Sophie Gardach, she's explaining these journeys, these travels, the words took from one language into another, together with traders, right? Right now she's into Middle East and explaining how the names of spices were adopted by different languages. Wow, so exciting.
Can you give me one example, in English, of a spice? What is a spice, by the way?
A spice is that thing that makes your food taste better. You spiced it up.
Such as?
Like a cinnamon or salt, even. Like the most widespread spice is salt and pepper, right? But in particular, she was talking about cumin, which is a spice that, funny enough, didn't change its name in so many languages, and it even found itself in Mexico. But it goes back into some Akkadian, some super ancient language that existed even before the first written language, which is Sumerian.
In Portuguese, that's cominho, cumin.
You see it, same root,
Yeah. And one expression that I came across, a word that was just fascinating to me, the actual origin of it was the word oxymoron. I've used this word in another lesson months ago, and we explained it. But I think now we get to see the actual meaning of it in the origin of it. First of all, do you know what that is, an oxymoron?
Yeah, this is something that is when you combine two things which are opposites, like, I don't know, loud noise or something like, right?
Oh, loud noise
not
is
loud noise. It's like loud silence.
loud silence.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Loud silence.
Sounds quite poetic, right? It's used a lot in poetry. Like I'd say that it was so silent that it was like a loud silent, you could say. But some words are more applicable, like old news,
Yeah, that's a nice
or
example.
virtual reality. That's a thing.
Oh
But did you know that the word oxymoron is an oxymoron?
no, really?
Yeah. So the word oxy means sharp, and the
Uh-huh.
word moron here means blunt.
Sharp and blunt, really? That's ironic. Really?
Yeah. So, and just to continue going down this rabbit hole, do you know this expression, go down the rabbit hole?
Please explain it better. The way I understand it is just like, there are like so many details and like you go deeper and deeper. There are so many layers to something. When something is so complex that there are too many layers and you go into this rabbit hole.
Just like going on Wikipedia and just opening one article and then you find another link and open another one and then you have 10 tabs open. So just going down this rabbit hole of the word oxymoron. Moron is a word that exists in English. It's actually used more as slang. But the word sharp, which oxy means sharp, sharp is intelligent, right? It's synonymous to intelligent. So the opposite of sharp would be blunt. So in some sense, like a more person is a blunt person in the sense they're not very sharp. But anyway, and the word oxymoron is an oxymoron. It has two opposites in it. So see, once you learn all these meanings behind these words, it's just easier to remember them. And they add more richness, right? More quality to your speech. You become, I think, more fluent because of that. Your English is not so superficial.
Easy what I thought about right now, because actually we don't talk a lot about etymology here in our podcast, but I'm super passionate about. I would love to share more if our audience is interested. So guys, if you are interested in having a segment or from time to time to come back to this topic, please write us in the comments that you would love to hear more of this in our future episodes.
I love it. Yeah. And, I'm a vegetarian myself since I was born, but I do find interesting the words that exist in English to refer to the animal
and the meat.
The meat. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a classic example why in English we have an English and a French counterpart if you go back in history, right? But I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Please go on.
I was going to ask you, do you know what's the word for cow meat? Like cow's meat?
It's like it's beef. Mm-hmm. The same happens with sheep, right? Sheep and mutton.
But how about pig?
Mm-hmm. It's pork, right?
Mm-hmm. And finally, last one, deer.
Oh, it was a more difficult one. Let me try and remember it.
It's a longer one.
Venison? Something
Venison.
starting venison. Yeah?
Venison. I learned this from playing Minecraft.
Really?
It's like 15 years ago. Yeah.
Again, it shows how cool it is to play video games and learn English.
Yeah, to live your English, right? And I played it in English. So you get a lot from media, whatever kind of media you're a fan of.
But do you know how it happened to be this way? To have a name of an animal, one thing, and then the meat is a totally different word.
I don't know the reason. Why is that?
Actually, it's from those times when, I don't know if you know this period of history in Great Britain, this country, that at one point, the Norman invaded Brussels and they brought French language. So for some period, the French language became the official language of the court, of the court, and commoners, common folk, they would continue using Old English. So, for example, the word pig, farmers, common people would actually, breed pigs for the royals to eat pork then. So when it becomes a meal, it changes the word for the French equivalent. And when it's an animal, it's still Old English name.
But this is interesting because isn't the root of modern English simply Old English, would you say? Because I know you know a lot about the history there, but tell me.
You're opening Pandora's box here. Like, it's a totally different episode. And I'm not sure I'm well prepared to talk about it. It's just like I really love this thing, but I'm terrible with dates and names and everything. But, you know, what English as we know it today is just like a super complex combination of so many languages just because of its history. So there is there's French, there's Latin, there's all those, like, basically English belongs to Germanic languages. And if we imagine a language as a tree, its roots go down like many, many, many centuries, thousands of years, right? Deep. So it's a combination of Germanic languages, of French, Latin, and some other, even Greek.
So English is really this mashup of Germanic languages like Latin, Norse languages. A mashup is when you have a mix, right, of things. You have the word, the expression mashed potatoes. It's like when you mesh it, so it's like it's mixed and all together.
I believe I saw the numbers, and it's something crazy. It's like around 30% of English is Latin, and or 15% is Latin and 30% is French, because there are a lot of French words. Yeah, I think it's like something around like that. But like, again, guys, if you check up the statistics, it's like, it looks crazy. Like, are there even English words in the English language?
All right, Ksenia, so I want to challenge you again to guess the word. If I give you, like I was giving you different animals, like names of animals, like cow, pig, and then you were telling me what's the name of the meat for that animal. But what if I give you some words that they have like an adjective that's from a different root, just like lunar instead of moonly, right?
Let's try.
So I have some more words here.
Great.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's start with an easier one. How about the word dog?
Canine or something like that.
Canine.
Canine. Oh, I was wrong with the pronunciation, right? Canine. I never used that, but I heard it from somewhere. I think
You've
this
read it,
one,
right? Yeah.
it comes from Latin or something, right? The name of the dog. In some of the movies, you might you might have seen this K9, like the letter K and 9, and it basically is it refers to a dog, like a police dog, right? The police unit that works with the dogs.
Because it's the same pronunciation, K9.
K9. Wow,
right?
crazy.
How about cat? Do you know the adjective for cat? Like let's say there's a cat's disease, a specific disease. What would the adjective be for that?
Oh my God, I love cats more than dogs, and I don't know the word. No.
It's also a noun, like when we talk about the big cats, like lions and
okay. That I can.
You know that?
I can. Give me time. The big cats. I'm sure I knew it. It doesn't come to me now.
Feline.
No, feline.
But how about the word brother?
Like, do you mean brethren or fraternal? You're
Fraternal.
referencing the fraternal.
Exactly. You can to make this easier. You can think like when I say brother, you can think like if there's a quality that's related to being brother, you could say there's brotherly, right? But the fraternal is the word that people use more often.
You're saying brother, and all I can hear now in my head is, I always wanted a brother. I always wanted a brother. That's the song that Mira is singing every day now because we've just watched Mufasa, Lion King.
I always wanted a brother. I always wanted a brother.
How about child? If somebody's acting like a child, what is their behavior called?
Very, let me say that. Infantile, right?
Infantile, yes.
Mm-hmm.
How about eye? Like my eyes. What is if I go to a doctor, what is the kind of terminology they would use?
Like ocular?
Ocular, yes. There's
It's
some words
because
that,
I know the name of the doctor, the oculist. Just the other day, I took Mira to check her eyesight. It's dropped, so we went to the ophthalmologist. But a simpler name to it is the oculist, the eye doctor.
And like I think parts of the body is full of that too, for whatever reason. Maybe there's a reason for that, just like
because
food,
of
right?
medicine,
Like
because of Latin
yeah.
comes from. I believe Latin once was a language for medicine.
The skin, you could say it's dermal, or the teeth, it's dental.
About the tooth and the dental, wow! Just today I watched the video talking about etymology, to pick up some interesting words there. And basically, that's so funny, but they share the common root. They just came into English at different times. So both tooth and dental, they come from the same root, from the same word. That's crazy, again.
Really interesting little segment here playing this game. And our lessons are usually like this, right? Like they're divided like in different parts. And for all of you guys watching and listening to us on YouTube or streaming platforms, you should know that you can actually consume our lessons and learn with them part by part, divided in chapters and micro lessons on our app, on the RealLife app. It's so much more convenient because if you have just like 10 minutes, if you're not exactly learning, if you're outside, if you're in line at the bank or supermarket, you can just, pull up your phone and start learning on the spot right there. And we're going to leave the link in the description so you can try that right now. And the link will take you straight to this lesson over there so you can continue watching it from there too. We give you so many resources, flashcards for you to learn as well. You can really internalize all these words that we're using today, these advanced expressions. So link in the description and we'll see you there. All right, now I have a slightly different game that I'd like to play with you to challenge you here with. And it's important to note, to notice that English has many synonyms. Like one word may have dozens of synonyms. And I can give you one example. You could say ask, but you could also say inquire or interrogate. They have slightly different connotation, right, meaning, but they could mean the same thing and have different origins. Ask is from Germanic languages, inquire is like more from French, and interrogate more from pure Latin. So I want to ask you for synonyms. If I tell you, for example, let's say if I give you the word fast, what words come to mind? You don't need to think about like the origin of the words you're thinking about. Just give me some synonyms.
So it might be quick or rapid.
How about nimble? Have you heard that before? Nimble.
What? I've definitely heard this word. What's the meaning of that? Nimble.
It's fast, but it's more unique in its application.
Oh, we're still on the fast.
Yeah.
I'm fast enough to move to another word, right? To move forward. Nimble. Oh no, I wouldn't connect it with the fast. You see, nimble. Interesting.
Yeah, so nimble. Maybe you could collocate that with fingers, like a pianist has nimble fingers, or a gymnast has nimble movements, right? This Olympic.
Yeah, it's interesting that there are certain words that they can't be like be direct synonyms, but they are collocated with certain words that, for example, it's so great to use them in this collocation, right? Like nimble fingers. So you kind of have this connotation of something quick and light, like light movements, very easy.
Yeah, see, this is so nice. Nimble. It's different from fast, right? If you've seen this word being used in these contexts, suddenly it means more than simply fast. It's light, as you said, right? It involves like being accurate, maybe even like artistically accurate. It's beautiful to see, to watch it, maybe, right? Nimble movement in this sense. And words, they really carry so much more meaning than like a simple definition. And that's why it's important to really live the language and see how they are applied, to really witness real life English in front of you, so you get all this meaning.
You know what we also didn't share actually about etymology? It's the science of how the language was changing as well. And still it has been changing since the very beginning and until now, because every year, there are new words appear. But not only that, one of the fun sides of that is that words can also change their meanings. For example, take the word nice. Originally, it meant something bad. It meant some unintelligent person or something like that. It came way back in history. And now it means something good. Yeah, nice person, friendly person. So words also change over time. That's also another fascinating side of etymology.
That's so nice because even with words that we're seeing today, we may think that they will be here forever, but they could vanish. They could go away. And I do have some examples here that I set aside that I wanted you to explain why some of these expressions could be going away. So for example, if I say, hang up the phone. So we still do that. We still say that, but it doesn't have its literal meaning anymore. So maybe because new kids don't really have that association, they won't. But why did we used to say hang up the phone? And what does that mean?
It's because basically of those old times phones that you had this receiver. How would you call that? Yeah, and so you could hang it up and hang up just to end the call. And because we're using smartphones, you just click the button, right? But with that said, there are some words which surprisingly reappear from older times. For example, if you think about Black Plague, a terrible epidemics that swept across Europe, right? And then when we had this coronavirus, we had terrible thing of lockdown, and there was a quarantine. And because you're a native speaker of Portuguese, maybe quarantine says you something. Where can it come from?
Yeah. So the word 40 is 40.
Exactly. And it comes from those terrible years of the Black Plague when the sailors, when coming from abroad, they had to quarantine for 40 days. It was just a quarantine meant basically 40 days of being isolated, not to spread the disease if they could have it, coming from different countries. So, and we used this word again during the coronavirus pandemic.
That's true. Quarantine. Yeah, I remember people didn't know what that meant. And they're like, okay, let me look that up. In Portuguese, I think it's easier to guess it, right? Yeah, but some phrases that I was thinking here as well. Let me continue challenging you. How about rewind a movie? Is that something that we can still, yeah.
I don't know, maybe you would still like call those buttons, but now you actually see them on the screen, rewind buttons. But back in the day, those were actual buttons on this video player, right? So that you would rewind it. The cassette.
What is that, to rewind something? What's the meaning of that? Like literally? Is like wind? Because it's similar, like the the spelling of a wind is like a breeze, but it's say different pronunciation, right? And different meaning. Exactly.
This is something related to turning back this tape. So cassettes had tapes, so you had to come back to the very beginning. You had to rewind it. So like a wire, imagine like, I don't know how to call that, but you can wind it, like you would shape it in a ball or something.
A more common word or form for that verb, you'd hear like a wound up, right? I believe like a mummy is wound up.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So this is about rapping, right?
Rapping, yeah. There you go. How about to tune in to a show?
That's interesting.
It's really related to technology, right? Because technology advances and some words are left behind, but we can still continue using them. But for how long? Maybe they would go away, right? At least the application of these.
Yeah, but people would use it even without realizing the origin of it. Like tune in. Right now, I don't have a relation to what it actually meant. Like literally, I would just tune in, use it like, I will join and, start listening to it or start watching it. But what was it in relation with?
So tune, I don't know if you've heard the expression, the collocation fine tuning, which is adjusting the frequencies.
Yeah.
So you can really get more pristine, more clear sound from the radio, or simply tuning on the radio. That's exactly what that means. It's adjusting the frequencies. Fine tuning is something that I hear more these days as a collocation, which is just removing those small inconsistencies or errors. And anyway, but people these days you just click play, right, to start listening or watching. We don't need to adjust any frequencies to start listening or watching anything.
So it was related to frequencies, like on the radio.
Yeah, because if you wanted to listen to a show, you'd have to first tune in to be on the same frequency and find that. We still do that, right? But now you just press a button and it automatically finds the frequencies, but you can actually see the frequencies. They tell you that. And one last one, still related to technology. Have you heard the collocation, the expression, to sound like a broken record?
Yeah. It means like when you have an actual record playing, and when it's broken, it just like repeats itself like over and over again. That part of a record, like a playing record.
What is a record?
I don't know how to explain that, but basically that's that round thing with the music recorded on it. Usually black. Like vinyl?
LP, vinyl?
Vinyl.
If they're scratched, exactly that. Like they're broken, so they don't play and they keep repeating exactly what you said. But young people still say this, right? You sound like a broken record. But maybe some of these people, especially like the alpha generation, they don't even know what that means a lot of times. So these words could go away, right? Especially the ones that are more like record could go away, at least in this sense, or tune in. We don't think that it could, but it can, and it has happened, and it happens every decade, every century. We see this renewal of words.
I would be skeptical. You never know when the word can reappear, but I know where you're getting. I mean, like, because we don't use those things anymore, the language is a life organism almost. So it's always evolving, developing, adding new words, forgetting older words, then bringing them back. And who knows, maybe in hundreds of years from now, English won't sound anything close to what we know it today, right?
Yeah.
Nowhere near that.
It's very likely that it won't, actually, right? Based on the past. But anyway, Ksenia, this was such a nice lesson to do with you. I know you are a fan of etymology, as I was saying. And you actually inspired me to get more into this. You know, I learned so much by preparing and with you here today. So thank you. And I also want to thank you guys watching and listening to us. If you are on YouTube, just know that you can support us by hitting the subscribe button and the bell down below, and also giving this video a like, because that helps YouTube know that this is valuable. This video, this lesson is valuable for you, and it can also be valuable for other learners. If you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any streaming platforms, do the same. You can follow us there, because it signals, it tells these platforms the same thing, that this is really great, and it helps us grow. And if you're not listening or watching this lesson on the RealLife app, what are you waiting for? As I said, it's really the best way to learn with these lessons. We give you many resources, the best way to consume these lessons. And again, we offer chapters and micro lessons, and it doesn't have to be this longer experience that you usually go through on these other platforms. So go there right now. We're going to leave the link in the description, and you can start your vocabulary practice right away now that you have completed this lesson. So thank you so much. And as we always say on this podcast, no matter what divides us, that which unites us is far greater. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Do you ever feel stuck using the same basic words in English over and over again? Let's say, for example, that you go to see a movie in the theater, and then later a friend of yours asks you how it was. And then your response is, the movie was good. But really? Is that how your experience actually was? Because maybe what's in your mind is something more along the lines of, the movie was really captivating. I was on the edge of my seats the entire time. So if you watch today's lesson until the end, you'll discover how to express your thoughts and your feelings in English more naturally, just like you do in your native language.